budget public hearing to order. Can we take roll call, please?
Ms. Atkins?
Here.
Mr. Bach? Mrs. Peterson?
Here.
Mrs. Sandow?
Here.
Mr. Sorensen?
Here.
Mr. Sturm?
Here.
Mr. Wright?
Here. Approval of the April 6, 2026 budget hearing agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Speak up, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Sturm?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes. Opening statement.
This time, we're gonna turn it over to, let's see here. Am I sharing my screen with you yet? No? Okay. Let me make sure. It's my first night. Entire screen. Okay, now, there we go. Can you see? Okay, let's go ahead and do. All right, you can see it? All right. Can you still see it? Am I still sharing? Okay, good. All right, turn it over to. Yep. To Mrs. Reyes?
Okay, for the 2027 public hearing for the fiscal year 2027 budget, there was a handout over there, I believe that all of you picked up, but I will be talking about that, so it's a little bit easier to see on the handout as opposed to the screen. So you will go to that next screen. This is the proposed property tax levy as of March 5th. So this is what everyone received in the mail. That's what this was based off of. So on that one, the levy rate was $11.36. So since that time, we've had some changes that have taken place, so we'll discuss those. But the other thing that I wanted to discuss on this screen was the reason for the tax increase. That is written at the bottom there. So the first thing is the district's mandated uniform levy of $5.40 per thousand increased due to the valuation increase of 16.4%. Overall for the district. So automatically, when you have a valuation increase on a set levy rate, your dollars will increase there. The district also chose to reduce the future year interest costs by paying down our additional bond principal. And the district levied for the management fund to cover property taxes and workers' compensation insurance. And then this past year, which is this current year, we did not levy for management fund at all. We used a balance that we had from past years. So we are still working to spend those funds down. And this, for the fiscal year 27, we are also not levying the full amount either and continuing to use reserves that we have on hand. So also on this tax statement, it showed that there would be a 4.31% increase. So with that, there are some inbuilt assumptions. The first thing is that there is a 10% valuation increase for everyone on an individual basis, and that is the only property that has an increase in value. As I stated before, we had a 16% increase in our valuation overall across residential and commercial industrial property. So that also already makes that assumption incorrect. The district, when doing this prior to March 5th, also did not know the state supplemental aid, and we also did not know property tax for the budget guarantee on what amount we were going to need, if any, and if that was going to be covered by property taxes or if the state was going to cover those amounts. So what we know now is that state aid was set at 2% by the legislature. Budget guarantee will not be funded by property taxes. Property tax relief will be funded through property tax replacement payment from the state. So now the district has reset the property tax levy rate, which will be published tomorrow in the Nopperell, and it is on the backside of the other sheet that you had, will be set at $11.20. After this is published tomorrow, the district can no longer increase the tax levy rate above the $11.20.
So just to recap, we were at 11.26 this year. We had projected out to be as much as 11.36, but then after all of the state finalized everything that they do, we're at 11.20 now, so.
So that is the same sheet that you have there showing the 11.20. I also even tried to make it bigger on there so you could read it up there as well. If you'll go to the next sheet. So on the sheet that the county sends you, it shows you an actual projected percent change with a 10% valuation increase. So I have recalculated those numbers using the new levy rate of $11.20. So that is a decrease of 0.5% on the levy rate. Per $100,000, it would be, if you have an increase of 10% on the valuation, your overall increase would be 2.8% or $15. If you'll go to the next screen, this one is if you were not to have an assessment increase at all. So if your assessment stayed the same, per $100,000, your valuation would decrease by $35. Now, I went ahead and I found some examples of valuations of actual property taxpayers, and all of them happen to be either sitting at this table or employees that are in this building. So this example here is an increase in their assessed valuation of 15.1%. After the valuation, taxable valuation, they will have a decrease there. And then their taxes due will be a 17.9% increase, which is a dollar change of $89 for the year. Example 2 is a valuation increase of 10%. So this aligns exactly to the example that would have been on the sheet. So they would add a taxes due increase of 2.8% or $67 per year. And example 3 is a valuation, assessed valuation increase of 6.4%. Their taxes due is actually negative 0.6% or a negative $14. So anybody with a valuation increase of 6.5% or less will not have a tax increase and will see a decrease in their taxes from the district itself. So what is left of our budget is this evening we have our first public hearing. Tomorrow we will have our second budget public hearing published in the Nopperell. After that point of publication, the district cannot increase the levy rate above the $11.20. On April 20th, we will hold the second public hearing. And then that evening, the board will also adopt the budget. And then the deadline to file the budget with the Department of Management will be April 30th.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Reyes. At this time, we will open the floor for receiving written comment, but I'd like to read a statement from our policy that we have for public participation in board meetings. The board recognizes the importance of citizen participation in school district matters. In order to assure citizens are heard and board meetings are conducted efficiently and in an organized manner, the board will set aside a specific time for public comment. Citizens wishing to address the board during public comment must notify the board secretary prior to the board meeting. The board president will recognize these individuals to make their comments at the appropriate time during public comment. Citizens wishing to present petitions to the board may also do so at this time. The board, however, will only receive the petitions and not act upon them or their contents. The board has the discretion to limit the amount of time set aside for public participation. Normally, speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. However, the board president may modify this time limit if deemed appropriate or necessary. Public comment is a time set aside for the community input, but the board will not discuss or take any action on any matter during public comment. A public comment shall be limited to regular board meetings, will not be routinely held during special board meetings. The board has a significant interest in maintaining the decorum of its meetings, and it's expected that the members of the public and the board will address each other with civility. The orderly process of the board meeting will not be interfered with or disrupted by public comment. Only individuals recognized by the board president will be allowed to speak. Comments by others are out of order. If disruptive, the individual causing disruption may be asked to leave the board meeting. Defamatory comments may be subject to legal action, and that's based on a legal reference of Iowa Code 21-22-279.8. So at this time, we'll open the floor to receiving written comment. Do we have any written comments that have been received?
I have not received any written comments.
Do we have anybody online? Okay. Then at this time, we will move to receiving oral comments. Do we have anyone wishing to present an oral comment to the board?
Does anybody want to,
Does anybody wanna come
who
up
doesn't
and
want to talk? Speak? Yep. So one of the things we're going to ask you to do is just kind of state your name, your address, so we have it on record, and then you can go ahead and state or say whatever you need to. So,
My name is Roger Williams, address 10605 Wabash Avenue. I guess I have a question. When she was talking about the tax levy of, bear with me. It was up there that the district's mandated uniform levy of $5.40 per thousand increased due to a valuation increase of 16.64%. The 16.64% was property tax valuation.
Yes.
So, and you said, so what would cause the $5.40 to change at that point?
The levy rate did not increase. The property tax value, the dollars that the district received increased.
I can appreciate that. It's still at $5.40 per
Correct.
thousand, but your valuation went up 16%.
Yes.
Which would cause an increase.
Correct.
And what you've explained to me is, but now this proposed levy is going to be 11.36%?
That was as of March 5th. As of tomorrow, the publication will be published at $11.20.
So in reality, it's going to more than double.
No, the uniform levy is only a small portion of that. Our tax levy rate last year was the $11.26.
What was the 540?
The 540 is a uniform levy rate that is for the general fund set by the legislation. So every district in the state of Iowa automatically has a $5.40 levy rate.
And you're adding on $6 and whatever difference to come up with the 1120.
Correct, for other items, some of it being the general fund, which $12 million of it is from the general fund.
I'm totally confused, I'm sorry. And you did show instances where, somebody's gonna go up $90 and somebody's going up $50 and somebody's going down $14. And I guess I'm confused how that happens at all.
So based on their valuation increases, that determines how much their property taxes are going to go up. But there's a rollback in there that was calculated, so even if your property tax valuation stayed the same, the rollback decreases your taxable amount along with our levy rate now is going to also be going down. So you would have a decrease in your taxes. So as long as your valuation increase was not more than 6.5%, you will have a decrease in your tax rate to the district.
Last time I got a valuation increase, it was about 40%.
I've not heard of anybody's being that large, but
It was huge. Thank you.
Thank you.
I won't say that I'm any smarter than I was, but,
Hi guys, had to talk to you for a while.
That's fun.
Randy Cannell, 19852 Northern Pine Road. Simple question. If you didn't do a thing, how much of an increase would you get? If, because of the property taxes going up, you didn't add a single thing to it, how much more are you going to get next year or the next time because of property tax valuation? With absolutely nothing else going on, you're going to get an increase simply because the county has not been known to reduce anybody's property tax or anybody's property valuation. So you've got to be getting an increase just by the fact of what the county does, right? Without doing a thing more, you would get an increase. Not as much as the 11%, but you would get an increase. First of all, you get the 5 point whatever, but you get more too because everybody's house, like she showed, $100,000 this year, $110,000 next year, whatever, or $200,000, which means you're getting more tax for doing nothing except sitting there. So how much would you be ahead by not doing a thing? You know,
Right. No, right. And so when we talk about 1120, so what you guys have to understand is what the board has authority over are things like, really what the board has the authority over is the management levy, which last year we didn't levy anything because we had a big amount sitting there. So we said, oh, we had extra in the management levy, so we didn't levy anything last year. So then this year we have to levy back something because, and what the only thing we can use management levy on, we can't pay a single person out of that. The only thing we can use it on is property insurance and a workman's comp. And so when those go up, you know, as we know, all of our property insurance is going up, you know, 10, 15, 20%. As those go up, so does the school. Like the school's cost goes up, but we pay that out of a management levy. So we have a pretty healthy management levy. So last year we didn't levy a dime. And when I say healthy, we spend, what is our total bill out of that every year?
1.7.
$1.7 million every year comes out of our management levy. And that just goes straight to insurance. So property casualty and workman's comp. And so last year we had a really healthy fund over there, so we didn't levy anything. So we spent $1.7 million out of our management, like extra that we had set aside, okay? This year, we need to levy something back because otherwise what ends up happening is if that drops down to zero, we're gonna levy back $900,000 this year. So we're basically splitting the costs. So we're gonna levy $900,000, or we're gonna recommend levying $900,000. The cost is gonna be almost $2 million. So we're still gonna pay over $1 million out of the fund that we have, out of the balance that we have sitting there. If we don't levy something out of it this year, what's gonna end up happening is we're gonna have to levy the entire $2 million next year and moving forward. We at least have a couple years that we can levy half in order to move forward. We're trying to do this so we don't just, you know, at a time when everybody's valuation.
but you still haven't answered the question. How
No,
much,
and I'm getting
how
there.
much does it go up without doing a thing?
Right, and so what ends up happening is when the state gives us our formula, the state tells us this is how much you have to spend per pupil, per student. It's just almost exactly $8,000, okay? So they're like, well, you get $8,000 to spend per student. And then the state, depending on how much value you have within your district, determines how much of that comes from property taxes. The higher populated or the higher valuation that the district has, the more comes off your property tax, the more you fund it versus the state funding. What she's talking about, a uniform levy, that $5.40, is something that every single school across the state of Iowa has to pay. And then to make up the difference between that $5.40 and whatever you need to make that $8,000 per student is dependent upon how much property valuation that you have in your district. School districts that have a really low property valuation, the state picks up more of their tab, so that way the people in the area, are able to pick it up. People that have really high property valuations like we do, we pick up more of the tab because then, let's say our neighboring rural districts, because we're a high property district. So, but again, you're talking out of $11.20, there's probably $8+ of that we have zero control over. Zero, nothing. The state tells us this is what you are gonna charge. And then on top of that, we have things like the management levy that we go in order to make sure we can pay our insurance. So the state gives the board the authority to levy that. We have what's called a voted PEPL, which is $1 but that's voted in by the public, and it's $1 levy that we get. It's no more, no less. It's just $1 levy. And so when you get a 16% increase, you're right, we get a 16% increase with that dollar. And then we have what's called a board-approved levy, which is in that voted levy, the voted PEPL's just for property, just for essentially facilities is the only thing you can use that on. It can't use it on teachers, can't use it on anything else. The board has a board-voted PEPL, physical plant and equipment levy, that's about 34 cents. Is 33 or 34?
33.
33 cents that they can use, again, that the board can approve. So that's $1.33. You're talking another 60 cents for our, so probably $2. So those are probably about $3.50 there that the board does have some authority. And then the last one's the voted bond, which was another voted in tax. So other things that the board has some authority over, like we have what's called a instructional tax. That goes directly to the students. So there's very little. People come and think, well, you have authority over $11.20. The board really only has authority over about, is it $4-ish? That's what the board has authority over, and several of them are voted in by the public. So the voted bond, the voted PEPL, the voted instructional tax, those are all voted by the public. The only ones the board really has the authority over are the management levy, which we use to pay insurance, and then the board PEPL that they have the authority to go through. Otherwise, everything else is either voted on by the public or, specifically dictated by the state.
And all this has done what to the education level? Have we gone from 75% meeting max? Are we at 85% now, 95%? Where are we standing here, guys?
We hover around 80%. We hover around 80%.
What were you last year?
District-wide, depending on language arts or math, probably 78%.
So you haven't done much to increase that. What are your goals to get 95%?
Well, we do
All
we do
this
have
money
about,
you're saying is
Right.
$8,000 a student. What am I getting for $8,000? If a school district in Podunk, Iowa can do it for $5 a student or $5,000 a student, why can't we do it for $5,000?
nobody in the state, everybody has the exact same levy.
I didn't say that. What I'm just saying is they're getting as much buck,
They're also getting $8,000. It's uniform across the state. Every student in the state of Iowa, now every student even goes to a private school in the state of Iowa or a charter school, gets $8,000. The school gets $8,000 for every single student across the state of Iowa, whether you're in Podunk, Iowa, or you're in Des Moines, Iowa, or you're in Council Bluffs, Iowa, or you're going to a Christian school, or you're going to a Catholic school, or you're going to a public school, or you're going to a charter school. Everybody's getting the same $8,000.
And my question is, for future reference,
Right.
are you charging or seeing where that school rates, the private school, the public school, the church school, are they all at the same 80%?
We don't.
Are they all higher or lower?
We don't even serve close to the same student body. So private schools can accept students. So private schools accept only students who that they want to.
Yeah.
They accept students who, can afford it. They accept students who don't have a learning disability. They accept students who don't have physical disability or a mental disability. They accept all these students, right? So they're accepting students who predominantly are already there. We have to serve every student that walks through our doors. We are 14%, or 14% of our students are special education students, which means they come to us with a learning disability. And so, and we try. I mean, we work like heck to make sure that we can get all students at a point where they are going to be at a proficiency level, right? Which is at grade level. However, when we're working with students that have all of these learning disabilities from a young age, you know, physical, mental, you know, behavioral, it's a much higher hill to climb than it is for students who don't have it, right?
Yeah.
When you're bringing in students that come from, and we have 35% of our students come from poverty. So when we're bringing in students from poverty who have parents that may or not be at home, who may or may not be able to provide for them on a regular basis, and they're more worried about food and clothing and safety than they are about schoolwork, that's a much higher hill to climb. So I cannot go down the road of comparing our student body in a whole to what another private school might be serving. It's a completely different student body.
Thank you.
Yep.
You and I've had this discussion before.
Oh, 100%. Yep. No, we're good.
Is there anyone else? Okay. Then, hearing no other comments at this time, do we have a motion to adjourn the budget hearing?
Motion to adjourn the budget hearing?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Right. And then we're 3 minutes early for the other one. So we'll give it a couple minutes. We need to take a break.
What do you got?
So these microphones are all going on the internet. So if you were at home, you can hear everything that we say, or you can. Do we have like a PA system?
We used one at our sessions, and it was just like a karaoke machine, essentially.
You need to talk more. We can't hear you in the back of the bus.
That's why I have this microphone right here.
Yeah, but see, it doesn't go up here, it just goes, that thing right there. But it's not just you, I think it's the system, doesn't make a lot of, you can't speak. He's got a better voice.
My wife tells me I talk too much.
Yeah, but he's got a louder voice.
I used to be a teacher, so I can practice.
Well, there's a little JQ rating here. Communication. I'm sure you got the communication course someplace. Speech or something.
All right, I'll give it a minute for Andrea here.
Looks like they're getting ready to start up again.
Look at her beautiful brain.
Yep, will do. Here you go.
Now,
No worries.
I remind myself 22.
Board meeting to order. Can we take roll call, please?
Ms. Atkins?
Here.
Mr. Buck? Mrs. Peterson? Here. Mrs. Sandow?
Here.
Mr. Sorensen?
Here.
Mr. Sturm?
Here.
Mr. Wright?
Here. Approval of the April 6, 2026 agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Are you removing that item, or?
Yeah, the only thing, we do have we had an issue with our Chromebook bids, so I'm gonna redact the 7.04.
Okay, so 704 and 904
Yeah.
are coming off. Okay.
Correct.
All right, so then do we have an approval of the amended April 6, 2026 agenda?
Motion to approve the amended version?
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Sturm?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes. Accommodations, good news.
So I do have a short presentation here. All right, so the high school science department was awarded 3 Ts of education grant from Pacific Light. So $3,000 grant for 25 microscope cameras. So thank you to Misty Burrows. Lewis Central BPA, so 13 students headed to nationals. The list is right there of all the students that are going, so congratulations to those students. Do we know, Mr. Swaller, where nationals are?
Nashville.
Nashville?
They're in Nashville. Ooh, very fun. So, good luck to those students. National History Day, regional competition. 5 middle schoolers and 5 high schoolers qualify for state. The list is right there. This would be something I would not have qualified in. Social studies was not a thing of mine. The business professionals I would have been all over, but not necessarily National History Day. Does anybody know where National History Day is going? Iowa State. Iowa State, gotcha. Well, that's state, yeah, that makes sense, not nationals. I'm like, Nashville's way cooler than Iowa State, but again. Okay, Skills USA had a fantastic conference. So here's the results there. Obviously, a lot of students participating. Looks like we brought home a ton of hardware, lots of golds. Evelyn was elected the state officer teams. Congratulations to her. Otherwise, again, lots of golds and bronzes. So congratulations to the Skills USA state conference. Hawkeye 10, all academic and character awards. So every year, the Hawkeye 10, we submit names of students who meet the qualifications, and it's very, very hard to get awarded any kind of either all academic or character award at the Hawkeye 10. And so it's our last year in the conference, and so our very last all academic and character award winners. All academic is Amelia Gill, Alexander Alford, and Cooper Williams, and then Deegan Tanner was the character award winner. So, and just so you guys know, there's a set amount every single year. Every school is guaranteed an all academic and a character award, and then we always have either tied for the most or the most other award winners. So this year was no different. So. Southwest Iowa Honor Choir Festival, 20 middle school students and 10 Titan Hill students participated. It was fantastic. I got to go. My daughter was a part of the group, and she actually ended up sitting down halfway through a song. She got a little bit overheated. So if you saw anybody up there, she's fine. It was my daughter, so she's good. But no, they did a fantastic job. It was great performance, and they held it. That's in our auditorium, and I think that maybe the permanent location moving forward. Everybody loved it. So I mean, you can't beat it with the black box and the changing rooms and everything else. So Lewis Central was named Unbelievable Workplace again. Thank you to Emma. She put together a nice presentation, went around, got a picture with a bunch of different employee groups, and then put that on Facebook for us all to celebrate. And what this means is that the chamber puts out a survey, and you send it out to your employees, and they fill it out, and you have to get, certain amount of participation, and you have to score X amount, 85 to 90% plus of positive returnees, and we blow that number out of the water. So people, we got some really good positive feedback too, as far as it's also an opportunity. We use it actually as like a dipstick for our staff in general, because it's an opportunity for them to not only, express, and there's a lot of questions. There's like 28 different questions, but, or maybe it's 34 questions. There's a lot of questions. But they get to express in a lot of different areas, from compensation to daily life within their job, and then also, what future aspirations, if they believe there's any chance for growth. It talks about training. It talks about how prepared they are, whether or not they get the materials that they need to be successful. And so it gives us a lot of data that we then as a management administrative group take a look at and try to determine if there's any holes or gaps. They're also able to put down comments, so we're able to see if there's anything in particular they're looking for. So, and that's it. Does anybody else have anything?
I just want to make sure I thank the Booster Club for putting together a great event to help raise money for Lewis Central. Also all the volunteers who stepped up and helped with the planning, and who continue to help volunteer throughout all the activities that we have during the year. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, so Booster Club had their auction 2 weeks ago. We actually, one of the cool things is for the first time ever, they gave out awards. They've not given out awards before, and they gave out 3 awards. One went to, they're calling it a legacy, like a Lewis Central Legacy Award, and that goes to an individual or individuals who create a lasting impact for our students moving forward. Something that's gonna, it's not just what they've done, but something that's gonna continue to feed our students as they move on. That award was given this year to Dr. John and Jean Marshall, just really to thank them for their generous donation, the $700,000 donation for the athletic building addition. And then they also gave an award for Volunteer of the Year, and that went to Bernie Heller, sorry.
There you go.
Bernie Heller, and just for, I mean, the guy for the last 40 years has volunteered at everything. You'll see him running up and down sidelines, announcing at games. I mean, literally doing anything that Mr. Dermody can talk him into doing. So we had to trick him because we knew that he would just straight up not show up if he knew he was getting an award. So we made it. So we got him to come, and then he got his award. And then also they had a Coach of the Year, and what the Coach of the Year goes to, it's not necessarily about wins and losses, it's about how involved are you with the Booster Club, you know, how much do you put in, because the Booster Club raises a ton of money and does a ton for our coaches and for our athletes, because for every dollar that they raise for our teams, our coaches don't go out and fundraise, and our coaches can get more money if they volunteer to run concession stands and if they do those types of things. And with as busy as coaches are, you know, the Booster Club loves it when somebody steps up and says, yep, I want to do more and I want to help out and I want to make, you know, because they're not only raising money for their program, but for all programs. They gave it to Taylor May this year, and Taylor for the last few years, I mean, really since I've been here, has been super, super involved with the Booster Club. I mean, helping to set up concession stands, run concession stands, picking up stuff to order. I think he's currently maybe the incoming president. So he's just, he's an officer of some sort, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't remember what it is. Yeah, I think he's super active.
Yeah.
And if he is going in to be an officer, 110% support him.
Yeah. So I think moving forward, that'll be something they continue to do. I think it's good for them to honor and recognize those who are influential. And then they raise, you know, almost $63,000. 100% of that goes right back into our students and our programs. So thank you, Booster Club, for everything you do. It was a really fun evening, and looking forward to next year's event. So thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, no problem. Any other commendations, good news? Okay, we will move on to comments and suggestions. This is the first portion of our meeting that we open the floor to the public for any comments or anything that they would like to direct to the board. We don't have much of an audience here in public, so we'll give it a couple minutes and see if we have anybody online. Good? Okay. So no one online? Well, no comments online, I'll put it that way. All right, we will move to consent agenda. Do we have an updated?
We do, yep,
personnel
I have it
sheet?
up here.
You have to go to the one that I sent you, Brennan.
Yep, I threw it in the packet here.
Oh.
There we go.
Oh, Chuck's the new one there?
Yep. He decided after 42 years it's time to go do something fun. So
He said he was gonna spend some time with his daughters, so we'll see what he does there.
yeah, probably
Alright.
gonna get really into his cars, I think. So.
Probably. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Sturm,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes. Reports, 6.01, superintendent update.
All right, hold on here. All right, so I just have a quick update about the strategic planning. Let me get this a little smaller here. Just to kind of give you guys a heads up, this Thursday will be our last DLT meeting of the year. And so they'll finalize what their recommendations are to the board and the areas of opportunity and access. For the last 8 months, that's what they've been focusing on, is just creating measurable targeted goals, specifically in the area of literacy and student behavior, that we're gonna have action plans for. And then I will go ahead and present those to you guys at the end of May. And then in August, and then from May to August, Emma and I will create a website that we'll be able to put all of our strategic plan on. The public will be able to follow us. Anybody that wants to look at Lewis Central in general, maybe a prospective parent or student will be able to, or teacher even, will be able to log on to our website, click on strategic planning, and they'll be able to see what is our strategic plan, what are our areas of focus, how are we, currently progressing through meeting our goals in there. So we're starting off with 3-year goals. So you'll have goals in the areas of opportunities and access, which is, or that's our literacy goal. So that's what are we doing to ensure that all of our students have opportunities and access to do whatever they want to do when they get older. And really, it all starts with reading. And then culture climate, that is the one that they, after looking through a lot of different data, they fell on student behavior. I think it's going to be, and we're going to do, there'll be several different kind of goal. The main goal is going to be to reduce the amount of referrals that we have in general with students. But then the actionable plans are, it's quite complicated, because how do you reduce referrals? Well, you build better relationships. You can't just start hammering students. You gotta build better relationships with them. You gotta build better relationships with the parents. You gotta put in structures of support for teachers to ensure that our students are engaged, because when students aren't engaged, that's when they start having behaviors. But then, are our teachers equipped to be able to do that? Do they have the skills and the resources necessary to ensure that our students are engaged throughout the entirety of their class? So there's a lot of different areas with that. It's not as simple as we're just gonna, start suspending kids more and that'll cut down on behaviors, because we know that doesn't necessarily work. And then finally, finance and facilities. So you'll see 2 different goals here. One will be structured finance goal. I think since myself and Mrs. Reyes got here, I think the whole focus has been, because of the state that we were in as far as our current budget and what we had to work with. I think that the thought process was we need to put in as much into savings as possible. So it was, how do we grow our unspent balance and our the ability to save money? Like, how do we grow that as fast as possible? So that's kind of where our blinders have been. It's just because when you're sitting and you essentially have no savings, and then you're like, we need to build it up now. There's not, the only structure about it is just trying to grow. So now we're getting to the point where we need to start leveling off, because we also don't want to have so much in reserves that that we're just hoarding money. We don't want to do that either. So we'll come up with a structured finance plan for the board to be able to say, this is how much we're going to anticipate bringing in on a yearly basis. This is our break-even plan. This is where, we're not quite there yet, but this is when we anticipate getting there, and this is where we're going to go from here, and then this is how we're going to spend the money. Because if we're currently carrying over $600,000 to $700,000 a year, potentially 800 or $1 million, what does that mean as far as additional spending if we didn't have to bring that forward? And there's a lot of areas that we might take a look at, one of which this next year we're going to look at hiring an SRO. And so if we hire an SRO, that's obviously more spending than what we had this year. So instead of growing our budget by the $600,000 or $700,000, we're going to grow it by $550,000. So we're going to slowly taper it off by adding in needed positions. SRO, we're also hiring a dean of students to help with those disciplinary and disciplinary data points. So we're hiring a dean of students that's going to be split between Titan Hill and the middle school. Moving forward, does that look at potentially hiring another dean of students? And when I talk about a dean of students, what they are is they're really a student-facing employee that's going to be there to help us ensure that we're able to meet kids where they are. What are their needs? How do we build relationships with them? How do we ensure that they're not frequent flyers into our office? And that's really what that Dean of Students does. So, and then, so once we have all that, we'll present it to you in May. We'll build the website. We'll launch it to our staff during our back to school event. And then they will turn around and within their buildings, they're going to create plans, because the goal is going to set, the board's going to set the overall goals of like, hey, we're going to reduce discipline referrals by this much. And then it's up to the buildings to determine how are we going to do that, right? How are we going, because Crest plan is going to be different than the high school's plan, because they just serve a completely different set of students. So, and then moving forward, what you guys can expect from us is quarterly reporting on metrics. So every quarter then we'll report back on where we're currently setting in regard to our overall goal and where we're sitting with our data. So, so I guess, do you guys have any questions on that? And we've talked about it several times. We're getting close to that point. Okay. So that's really all I had for my report.
Okay, then we will move into discussion items. So 7.01, strength and conditioning contract, service sports performance.
Yep, so this was a contract that last year we added in. And really this was to give us an opportunity to just to continue to evolve. I think that's one of the things that Lewis Central has been really good at is identifying, what are maybe some opportunities here. We'd like to look at ourselves as kind of a almost like a pre-college institution. I mean, that's really what we are, right? Like a pre-college, pre-workforce. But even when it comes to athletics, when we look at what we had as a high school, and if we really want to take it to the next level, we're looking at not only facilities, but structure within. I think we've added some coaching positions over the last few years. Now we added a strength and conditioning coach last year to work alongside, and Coach Camrad walked in at the perfect time. So Joe works right alongside Coach Camrad, because Coach Camrad, even though he's our head strength and conditioning guy, he's also a full-time teacher. Like, he's a full-time teacher. He's a football coach, which in a lot of schools is a full-time job, and really in our school too. So full-time teacher, full-time coach, also helps with wrestling, also helps with baseball. And then he also is our strength and conditioning coach, which means that he sets up all the programs. He's there every morning. He's there every after school. So what kind of resources can you provide Coach Camrad in order to help do this? Well, this is where this position came in. And I think this last year was a good learning year for us, but I sat down, had a meeting with Coach Camrad, talked to a bunch of other coaches too. I've talked with some parents, I've talked with some students, just to determine whether or not this is really doing what we wanted to do. And essentially what we wanted at the end of it was to be able to grow from kind of one universal program into being able to offer multiple different programs for students depending on what their needs were. And then, which hopefully would pull in maybe more of our athletes who, I think up until that point, just because of the nature of Coach Camrad and what he's known as, the football coach, it didn't matter what he rolled out. It could have been stretching every single day and only stretching. They're going to view that as football stretching, So by bringing in somebody else to create programs alongside with Coach Camrad, it was like, oh, well, now this program's for me, And we don't care. We just wanted numbers up, right? And so I guess since you're here, Coach Camrad, can you speak on behalf of the partnership and maybe what you've seen as far as numbers? And
Can you come up here?
no, yeah, if you want to come here, that'd be great. Thank you. Sorry.
No, you're good. No. This is Adam. Obviously, this has been a.
Hit your button.
Hit this button?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. This has been a drastic improvement from where we were at before, adding Joe into our program. Not only is he here during the summer, but he's contracted 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week to come in to the class periods and be able to work and to assist not only myself, but also Jess Bond, who teaches a strength conditioning class, and then Ricky Torres, who's also in there, and then another teacher coach with Mr. Johnson. And so it's been huge for us. It's been a little bit different for me to change what we've been doing, but we're pretty much all on our iPads now, which you would not think in a weight room, which is sort of scary with that in there. But we're on iPads and we're functioning on different type of workouts. We're catering to both our in-season athletes, our out-of-season athletes, and then specifically to some sports, which Joe has done an amazing job. He's taken a lot of that on, and I've asked him to create some workouts for every single sport to try to make sure that they're getting what they need. And I think the biggest thing overall has been, when we sat down, was our female population wasn't drastically involved in our strength conditioning program for whatever reason that is. And we've seen a huge improvement this year, and that was one of our goals. We now have, I don't know if he'd mentioned this before, we now have an all-female lifting class, which grew from 20 students to 35 from one semester to the next. And I think they've really enjoyed that. We sort of catered that to them. For what it's worth, I think they enjoy being around other females as opposed to being around male adolescents and some of the grief that maybe they get in there. And so that's been another added aspect to what we've been doing. But Joe, going into the summer, now year 2, I think it's going to be even that much better. And we're always trying to improve and help our student athletes. I would say it's probably honestly a 50-50 split between our normal students who aren't involved in athletics who are also taking the class. So, we're trying to cater to them as well, and they truly enjoy it. So it's been a great added aspect to have Joe and Brian, who comes in 3 times a week to be with the kids. So I think the kids enjoy him as well.
Do you guys have any questions about it?
That was pretty good for an ad lib.
Yeah.
I know, it was.
When you say on your iPads, are they setting up the workouts and the students are going that way through the workout and then tracking weights they're lifting, how many they're getting? I mean, I've seen my kids do it a little bit, but.
Yeah, so it was sort of a rollout period for me. So we did a little bit first semester. This semester we've been really into it. And so what I do is I basically input they all have an account. I input the calendar to what exercise or whatever period they're in, and then the kids will go in and select that workout. And then once they get into that workout, some days we'll do our warm up together. Some days they'll be on their iPad to be able to do that. But it's really, they have to go in, and depending on what the workout is, some days they have to input data, some days they don't. But it allows me, and it goes right to my teacher platform to be able to, okay, did they do the workout today? Did they input their data? Are they improving? It allows me to be able to walk around and click on their workout and say, okay, last week you did this. Why are we going down this week? And so trying to improve. And so it's added another little dimension of accountability to the kids, but also for me to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. And so, yeah, each kid has their own workout specifically designed to whatever sport they may be in currently or going into next.
I love
Have we
it.
have we noticed any difference in injuries? If they went up, down?
I'd have to ask Brandon. Weight room injuries themselves, no, like we really haven't had any, or it hasn't been brought to our attention. Whether or not in sport has it reduced, that'd probably be a question for Brandon as he tracks all injuries. Is it really injury prevention? Is the workout that we're giving them helping, make sure that our athletes are staying on the field longer, which I don't have all that data. That would be more for our athletic trainer, Brandon Ellenwood.
And so really kind of, the weight room in general is completely different than it was, 3 years ago. You're talking, the essentials are all there, but in the last couple of years, you guys have approved a massive uplift of the weight room, which includes all new equipment, which includes, additional support for the strength conditioning side, which includes a full-time trainer, which we had a full-time trainer before, but they weren't employed through us. And that's a physical, like a physical therapist trainer, he's not a physical therapist, he's just an athletic trainer.
Yep, he does some of that,
Some
as
physical
well.
therapy, but, and then the next thing we'll talk about is, with the evolution of the athletic building and the movement of the wrestling room out to the athletic building, changing the wrestling room into an extension of the weight room, which is, again, it's not weight equipment, it's focused on, calisthenic or whatever you guys are going to do in there.
Yep.
So speed and conditioning, injury prevention type of stuff. So do you guys have any other questions about the service sports contract? And we didn't change any of the terms. He was good with the terms. We track his hours. We have regular check-ins with him. We don't have any concerns about whether or not the contract fits right now. Everything seems to be good. So
Good. Very positive improvement.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you, Coach. All right, we'll move to 7.02, 28E Joint Sharing Agreement, Special Education Administrative Associate.
So this is something that's relatively new. So when the AEA was kind of upended and changed, a lot of our services that they did, they kind of maintained for like the first couple years or first year. And so this last year, and really all their services, they've kind of determined like we're getting paid from the state for this, we're not getting paid from the state for this. So when it comes to some of our like clerical things with special education, which means that like somebody would look over our IEPs, somebody would look over and tell us if we're, you know, we're missing something or we need to add something or to make sure that we have what we need. Those things we've had some holes this year because the AEA states that it's no longer our job unless you want to pay us for it, right? And so we've been kind of brainstorming with some other districts and what they're doing to kind of fill this in. Hardlin has stepped up and said that they would hire essentially it's actually the same personnel that was doing it with the AEA when the AEA was getting funding for it. They're just gonna hire them, and then any school that wants to purchase a day a week from them, they'll just charge us exactly what a day a week costs from them. And then that way, they'll do all the clerical things that we were used to before. If we were to contract this through the AEA, we would be paying significantly more than what this is potentially proposing, which is, there's no set cost, it's just we're gonna pay 1/5 of one of their employees. So we'll have them a day a week to do all of the special ed clerical stuff. So, which is good because there's a lot of legal implications when it comes to IEPs, and having an extra set of eyes on them that knows what they're looking at and knows what we're missing is, you know, could save us from making a mistake and really also ensures that students are getting what they really need. So, any other questions?
I don't think so. All right, we'll move on to 7.03, Iowa Western Memorandum of Understanding, or Memorandum of Use, concurrent enrollment.
Yep, so this is our agreement with Iowa Western to be able to send students to them for credit and for them to be able to award credit like when our staff teaches the classes. So as you can see here, when we send students to them, we pay 90% of the bill. And these are, you know, and these are pretty standard across the state with every community college. So we pay 90% of the bill when we pay it to them, and then we also have to pay a textbook fee, and then we also have to pay any kind of materials fee that may have. So, and those are all spelled out in this agreement. If they send an instructor to our school and it's provided on our site by the Iowa Western instructor, which we don't have any of that, we pay 75%. And if we have our instructor teach the class at our school, which is the majority of our classes, then we pay 50%. No matter what, we still have to pay $85 per student per course for textbook fee, unless we already own the textbooks. That's one of the things that so like if it's a psychology class and we bought all the textbooks and students don't keep the textbooks and we reuse the textbooks, then they don't pay that fee. And then you'll see down here, there's a fee for every course that they take, if there's a consumable or like a lab situation. So.
Are the costs in line with what we paid last year?
They are. Nothing's really gone up since last year. We had a significant increase from the year before last year, or from last year to this year. Not a big, it's all stayed the same from this year to next year, so. There was one bill in the House and the Senate, which I would have been a proponent of, which was if you fail a course after a certain if you fail a course or you drop a course after a certain deadline, then students would be responsible for reimbursing the district at, you know, either 50% or the whole rate, because we do have, I mean, we pay this rate no matter what. We have students that sign up for classes, there's really no penalty. You sign up for 6 courses and you decide you don't want to show up to any of them and you just drop them all, we still pay for the 6 courses. So that's not something that is awesome, but there's really no repercussion right now. Any questions about Iowa Western? No. Chromebook bids, we're just going to table that one. Okay.
And then 705, resolution directing the advertisement for sale, approving electronic bidding procedures, and approving official statement.
Yep, so this is the resolution, so right here, for the district to go out to bid for $9.5 million. So here's kind of we actually did get our S&P rating, so we're an A+ rating. He thought maybe by this time next year, we'd potentially be an AA minus, which is even better. Here's the official bid form that goes out. And then here's all the official terms. No prepayment penalty, nothing like that, so. Do we know what the, so here's our maturity schedule here. So these are, by maturity, this is what we have to pay at each one of these. And this is all factored into our current rate as well. This is not anything, we won't be raising the rate or anything like that. It's all factored in the current rate, so.
So for the 9.5 million of bond money that we have left, we're basically negotiating with different financial lenders to see what they'll offer us to
Correct.
take that business on.
And
Yep.
last time it went fairly well, right? was
It went
fairly
really well.
competitive
We
bidding
actually
and
got $1 million
really
more
good.
than what we had anticipated, so. So yeah, that's essentially it, but they just, rest of this is all kind of legal. It gives our population, our valuation. Financial summary. And then here's the timeline. So we're right here, regular school building, or regular school board meeting. All of this is what you guys, through that one resolution, will approve today. And then it goes to the notice of sale in the paper. And then we'll actually do the GO bond sale on April 20th. You guys will have issuance documents on Monday, May 4th. The transaction will close on Monday, the 20th, and then we'll have it in our bank on that day. So.
And then do we know how much interest we made on separating that out like that?
Approximately how much, I mean, when we had it all prior to like spending a lot of it, we were making close to 50 a month, weren't we? $50,000 a month in interest, so.
Sorry, I didn't pre-ask that question, but
Give me 1 second.
it would just be interesting to know that number.
I was gonna look and see if it's on one of the sheets that Matt Gillespie gave me. But if it's not, he will be at our next meeting and we can ask him that question.
Okay, I'll hit him up then. Any other discussion on the resolution?
So the resolution just had to be, this
You
will
have
be
to
the
read it
motion
verbatim,
right
right?
here. Yep, just, you'd have to read that. Okay,
I get to say I declare.
you declare.
Out on the
I
table too.
declare. Okay. 7.06, E-rate wireless access point bid.
So we received, so this is E-rate, which means we'll pay 50% of the bill, and then, if I can get there, sorry, here we go. So we'll pay 50% of the bill. We received 7 bids, and this is to replace our entire wireless infrastructure. So we did part A last year where we kind of replaced the routers and that kind of stuff, and then this year it's actually replacing all of the actual heads. So total of the best bid came in RTI, $209,974.29, of which $104,000 will be our responsibility, and then that's the extent, and then we're out of our E-funds at that for right now.
Who did it last year?
I think RTI got the bid last
Did
year
they-
as well.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
it looked familiar.
RTI is, they're very, very competitive when it comes to like pretty much any school stuff. They would always win our bids in Missouri Valley as well, so. I don't know how they get it. I was even talking to one vendor about our Chromebook bids, and he's just like, I don't know what they're doing, because I don't know how they're giving you this pricing. But we never had any issue, like, we get it, it's good stuff. So, I guess they go off of mass quantities, I guess, and instead of making decent money off of one device, they hope to make a similar amount off of a lot of devices, so.
Is Google Fiber Live here? It just became active in my neighborhood.
I'm not sure. We always buy our stuff through like a consortium
Okay.
in order to get preferential pricing.
Yeah, we use E-rate bidding for that as well. And I do not believe they bid.
Hills of Cedar Creek now has Google Fiber. So if you see
Nice.
all the flags, that's what everybody's doing, so. All right. Any questions on that one? All right, 7.07, high school boiler replacement bid.
So our high school boiler went out, one of our boilers at the high school. We could have done this as like an emergency, where we can just go ahead, in case it's emergency, we just spend the money, and then it doesn't necessarily have to be board approved. However, with the board meeting coming up today, I said, well, let's go ahead and just run it to the board. So, what Jim would like to do is he would like to just replace the boiler for boiler, because then he doesn't have to replace, a lot of the components that go with it. So, he just wants to basically pull the boiler out and put a new one in. So, and then leave all the lines and the igniter and all the other stuff, so,
Did this boiler just go out due to age, or?
yeah.
Haven't they been fixing this a lot lately? Like,
They,
I feel like it's,
yeah, this was one that they were having trouble with a long
Okay.
time, and it finally just, it's done.
Yeah.
So,
it's time.
yep.
Any other questions on that one? All right, 7.08, high school weight room wall removal bid.
So when it comes to the weight room wall, and I know we've talked about this before and just kind of mentioned it briefly today. So what the quote is there's currently, between the current wrestling room and the current weight room, there is a wall that spans this whole area, and then this is, our athletic training office right here. So it's where the kids get taped and everything else. And then there's a little bathroom back here. So the wall currently goes all the way out. So essentially what when in talking with Coach Camrad, and when we talk about, what do we do moving forward, because one of the things I've had two issues with the weight room. One was, the equipment we used was all hodgepodge together, and it wasn't all the same size. It didn't allow for neat rows. And so whenever I walk in there, and I'm like business and liability. So whenever I walk in the weight room, it gives me heart palpitations to see 60 kids working out in a mass, and you can't see down straight rows. And so when we got new equipment, that was a big thing for me, is let's get some new equipment in there so I can keep everything confined. And now when you walk in there, there's wide alleys, there's nice, neat rows. The supervision has to be 10 times better than what it was before. The other thing is right now, if Coach Cameron, because they do a lot of stuff besides lift weights, like they're in the hallways running, they're in the gym running, they're in the, because they do calisthenics and they do everything else too. The problem is he's got to take all 60 kids wherever he goes right now. And so 60 kids in the weight room, because it could be him and 60 kids or 50 kids. So you got one teacher with 50 kids in the weight room, and then if a few kids need to go and do calisthenics, all of them have to go, because he can't be both in the gym or the hallway and the weight room at the same time. He's got to be, so all of them have to go. So his vision in this was he would love to spread the kids out and have, half the class be doing calisthenics and the other half lifting, and be able to supervise both at the same time. So then you have less kids around all the weights, which that's inherently safer. And then you also have kids that are doing, and then you can flip-flop them, but yet he can be viewing everything. So we talked about several different ways to do this. One of the things we talked about was, in this, can we put in big windows here? Can we put in like a big doorway or a couple big doorways in order to see through? And he found himself, because we currently have we have a similar situation with our gym right now. Like we have big double doors that open to the gym. And through that, no matter where you stand, you're either in one room or you're in the other. And so through that conversation, if you're always setting yourself up for liability. If I'm stepping into the gym and I don't have visibility in the weight room and somebody gets hurt, now we're liable. Or if I have kids in the gym and I'm in the weight room and I step foot, and I'm all in the weight room and they can't see me and I can't see them and somebody gets hurt, now I'm liable. And so with me, even though this is a $130,000 fix, one bad situation is going to cost us significantly more than $130,000. And so he would like to eliminate, we'll have to leave a little section of this wall, this 8-foot section here, but he would like to eliminate the rest of this wall. There will be a column here, and then the beam kind of lines up here. There's already a doorway here. So basically it'll go all the way from wall to wall and end right here. So from here to here would be wide open, And then that allows him to both stand, I mean, he can stand anywhere in here and he can see everything in this room and everything in this room and be in the same place at the same time. And so, is that fair? I kind of, yeah. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I think continuing on with sort of the discussion about with Joe's service, Dr. Hastings correct. When we added new weight equipment, we also eliminated 5 stations to open up for safety purposes. But the class size numbers didn't change, so we went from 2 kids at a station to now 3 at a station. And so within that, if I'm working out with 2 other people, those 2 other people are doing 2 different exercises within the weight room somewhere. They could be spotting me, they could be across the room doing something else, or they're doing some type of dynamic movement or stretching or flexibility or mobility stuff. But a lot of times still, that's happening in the same area that other kids are still lifting. We make it safe, we spread them out enough. So when Dr. Hazing came and said, hey, we're going to add that to the room, I'm like, that's great. One, if you ever been to PE, if all 3 of us are teaching, there's nowhere for me to go to do any type of speed agility, plyometric, anything else. I have to sort of work around them off to the sides, use the hallways to sort of get our kids, warmed up or do some of those other movements. And so with that room, I'm like, my biggest concern, once again, is line of sight. How can I make sure that I'm able to see every student in there? Because currently they're doing 3 different things. And if I have to have a doorway and something's happening in the weight room, I'm over here, I don't know what's happening in the other side. Vice versa, which is probably more dangerous, is the fact if I go into the other room and they're lifting in there. That's my major concern. I'm not so much concerned about what plyometric dynamic movements or stretching we got going on in the other room as much as the weight room, making sure that technique is being done correctly and safely, but it allows us to be able to spread out a little bit more, and once again with Joe to be able to design even more specific workouts for our kids. And so during the summer we weren't able to do it because we were in a small gym, but from a speed and development standpoint, as our kids in between exercises, they'll go and do some speed work or agility work on their own, and I can see them across the room to make sure that's done right. If I'm over there, I can make sure lifting and technique is done correctly. So my biggest concern with him was like, if we have a door or some windows, I can't manage that. I can't correct movement. I don't know what's happening over there. And so I sort of lose them for that split second or a couple minutes. And so when he said, well, what about taking the wall out? And I said, that would save us a lot of issues. It save me from having to worry about, like you mentioned, injuries, like are the injuries happening? As I don't want that, and then thank goodness it hasn't been an issue. But that was my biggest thing with him, was if we can do that, that would be great, because now we can open up this whole space to be able to be managed by myself with those kids. We do have classes of 40 to 60 in there, and that becomes very difficult to be able to see. And now we can spread them out even more and be able to do a little bit more with them, but also being safe in that same capacity. So.
What's the plan for like the turf down in that area then? Okay, and is that a separate approval, or is that?
Yeah,
following in
actually the bid came in below what the board needed to approve.
perfect. Okay.
Yeah, so it actually was, I think it was right at 19,000 or something like that, so.
So are we getting rid of that door there too?
On the right side,
So-
the blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
I'm
it
assuming
sounded like
you
it's a
just have the
beam.
2 posts and then whatever
Yeah.
that is off to the left.
Yeah, so there'll be one beam here, because the current header comes right here, and then settles, on this wall, and then the wall, obviously this wall's here. So we'd have to put one beam that can support both this beam and this, or one footing that supports both this beam and this beam. And then, then there's nothing. This would be like a room in the middle of a bigger room. So.
And I'm curious, how many yards is that? Like, how many yards?
I want to say that's 73 feet. I'm not exactly sure. I measured it one day with my phone measurement tool.
I think you're pretty close, because it was
around
it was
20.
very similar. It was a little bit shorter and a little bit wider than the current athletic building.
Yes.
So the current athletic building is 80 by 40. So that would have been probably a little bit shorter, 75 or 73 feet.
Yeah, because, for speed development, obviously, we need to be able to run a little bit longer, but we'll be able to get 10s and 20s and agility and different types of cone drills in there. Obviously
Sled
it was,
work and-
yeah, absolutely. Prowler work and sled work, and be able to do some resistance sprinting in there, all while maybe some other students are on a different program lifting. And so, yeah, I think it gives us enough room to be able to do that, plus decelerate. no one's asked me, but the pads can stay on the wall. That's from the wrestling room. There's no need to take those off.
Right.
You know, in my opinion, it's fine in there. But it gives us a lot more space to be able to get some stuff done, which
What do you think
honestly
about-
makes it very similar to what a lot of facilities, you know, that are private facilities have. Now we have the ability to be able to train our athletes here all in one spot.
So, I mean, box jumps, plyometric, I mean, a lot of those things that we just didn't have a place to store 50 boxes before.
Well, it opens up stations for them too, so have more kids that aren't standing around waiting and,
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
Do
So
we
not
need to
that I'm
update?
totally against it, but I'll just come forward and say that I will probably be voting against it. Only simply because of the fact of, it's so much money, for approximately a 35-foot opening. We have not seen any cost of what it would cost to, maybe not put in doors, because I do understand, you know, double doors and then wide open now creates, blind spots. But I think maybe a camera system in each room would be significantly cheaper. I just don't know that we have explored all the options, other than this. And the other worry that I would have is, because that's a load-bearing, exterior wall, even though here it is interior now, when you start messing with your footings and stuff like that, it always seems to lead to sagging up on the roof and could create leaks in the future.
I don't know anything about the,
I
that
know,
part of
I
it.
get it. I'm just,
Yep,
I'm
absolutely.
just letting you know my.
For sure, yeah, and that's my thing is, you know, we do have the one door in there, and there's 4 windows, but there's tons of blind spots in there.
Right.
That it'd be very difficult, one, to manage it, you know, from a doorway, you know, from one room to the
Do you
next.
think
and
you would be able to manage it with a camera system?
It'd be too late at that point. You know, a camera system, yeah, it's gonna show you what maybe happened, but it's not
Yeah.
helping with the correction of the movement, to make sure things are done correctly at that moment that it needs to be addressed. You know, from a safety standpoint, if something did happen in a split second, you always have a chance to maybe correct it, but camera system is too late, unfortunately. Yeah, it's helped great for monitoring, what's going on and going back later, but to something right now, that it'd be tough. You know, I'm not sure that gets you out of liability by having a camera system, unfortunately, thank goodness. You know, we don't have those issues, but, you know, you just, heaven forbid that you don't have a huge open area to be able to manage that, with what we're trying to do.
I've always been a person that appreciates an open space because of the line of work I'm in. We don't want a blind spot. We don't want there to be a place where kids can jack around or do something where they get hurt. So for me, I do see the benefits of doing something like this. I just think that with making sure structurally it's sound, I mean, are we able to, has someone come out yet and told us what all needs to be done? I saw the price, but like thoroughly has it been looked at?
This is 100%. We paid
So-
BCDM, the architect, to come out.
Okay.
This is their design.
Okay.
So this will be their design. The contractors that won the bid, that'll go to you guys tonight, if approved. There's one beam that's this size that's in the Omaha area. And so it's just good timing. If we approve it, they can get a hold of this one beam. If not, the beam isn't made again until August.
Okay.
And so, and then, as far as the doorways and stuff, we did talk about doorway, and when I say doorways, without doors, just, you know, big openings. And that was the big thing that Coach Camrad said was, you know, even having several big openings, you're still sitting with blind spots. One of the things too is when something happens and a teacher's responsible for that area, if something happens and they can come back, they not only will come against the district, but they'll come against the teacher. The teacher is the one that's liable, not the district, right? Or the district as well, because we're the ones that created the facility. It's the teacher that made that. And so this is as much to protect our teachers as it is to protect, you know, our students from the liability situation. So.
Bubba, just to be honest, I looked at it the same way you did. And then I talked to somebody who had similar work done, and, because my concern is, we just did a lot of work on that, installing that new HVAC unit up
Oh,
above.
right.
And so that was one of my concerns too. What I've seen that they do when they do a project like this is they put in temporary supports
Oh, absolutely.
to hold it, and then they test those before they figure out which ones are gonna be permanent. So if they've measured this out and they've said, that these are where those permanent supports are gonna be, or they're gonna be able to hold that weight, then, do you know if we had any of that in that quote that we looked at for,
As far as
if they had talked anything about temporary supports while?
yeah, everything's included in there. Not only that, they're gonna build in the quote, just to make it so we don't have to stop our summer workouts, we're gonna take out, there's a set of weight equipment that's kind of runs right here. We're gonna take that out, and they're gonna build a whole temporary wall in here, to completely separate the students that are working from the work that's being done. The students that are working out from the work that's being done.
Yeah, and I'm not taking anything away from BCDM. I mean, the beam is rated PSI. They know how much PSI they need from point to point with the, and the load, that kind of thing. I'm looking at, cost-wise, and can we accomplish basically the same thing for half the cost? And none of that has ever come out. It's always been, remove the cost at, I said at 35, you're looking at over, what, $4,000 a foot?
So I guess
That's-
to go to you, because
well,
it's
at
it's
that
essentially
point-
it's your liability. So
Yeah.
that, from your stance, would you be comfortable having the same plan that you had with having kids in both rooms and everything else, if there's a doorway versus an opening?
No, I would not. I would stick to where we're at currently, and if we use that other facility, it would be me taking all the kids in there to make sure that it's done. That would be the only way that those two facilities would be used during the day, would be as a group, instead of you have your own specific workout, here's where you're going, this is where you're doing the workout at. And we would still just do it in our area, so that area would become unused a lot more than what we would plan on using it in an open setting to be able to do things in there, unfortunately. So it would sit empty a lot.
Well, ideally, this is the way to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is, we don't have anything to compare this to.
As far as,
As far as, well, okay, so I'm gonna assume that your first point there, so you have 8 foot 6 inches that's gonna stay. So if you went over, let's say 10 foot, and you put a 10-foot beam in, your beam is going to be a lot smaller, which is gonna reduce cost. And now you have another 12 by 12, right? And so, and then we're gonna go another 10 feet, so that's another 10-inch
Right.
beam. What is that cost? Because I can tell you
Yeah.
that beam is probably significantly higher than two
For sure.
10-foot beams, right?
yeah, and if you did that, if you look at like the gray boxes on there, that's our current lifting station. So every time you go 10 feet with the wall, I lose vision of 8 stations. So you add another wall, I lose vision of another. So I would lose vision of racks and stations of kids every 10 feet that you go by adding a wall, unfortunately.
No, we're not adding walls.
You're talking about-
We're adding a beam,
Yeah,
but then let's say every 10 feet, so you're gonna see 3
Footings?
pillars, right?
pillars.
Oh,
Pillars
pillars,
that
okay.
are
Yeah.
12-inch by 12-inch. That way it reduces the size of the beam that we would need. And I don't know that a 12-inch by 12-inch pillar, and like I said,
Yep, absolutely.
ideally, this is the way to go. Cost-wise, it has never been talked about going any other way than this.
But the pillars,
And this is
from my
expensive.
point of view, would be
Yeah.
a problem because he's trying to create a space for running and agility. So having those pillars, you eat up space, so you don't have that run room, right? So you'd want that to be open anyways, or whatever you're doing in these areas. you want it to be as clear as possible.
Right.
And as open as possible. And with kids running in, I mean, they could run into the beams, I mean.
Right.
I'm sorry, your pillars, so it's,
Right,
you
the
just gotta
pillar.
think like, I know it's a big expense, but for me, I would absolutely support something like that because you want them to have that room to have those multiple stations without anything obstructing their way, you know? And how are we with the budget with this? Is it,
So the budget, and I had them write a letter for us here. So here's the budget for the, just for the, construction for this was $150,000. Low bid came in from Sevener Construction, who's doing all of the exterior doorways and, windows at Titan Hill for $130,200.
And we're taking this out of the bond?
Yep, this is out of the bond.
And so this was was this included in what we talked about last time with the
Yep.
over under? And-
Yeah, they have this has all been a part of the budget since,
Oh, with Mecca Henny?
yeah.
yeah. I guess
And
the
that
way,
includes the beam?
So we've had $150,000 set aside for this,
Yeah.
actually it's $200,000 by the time it's said and done with, painting and turf and everything else. So we've had that set aside for the renovation of the wrestling room since, probably December when we started talking about the athletic building in earnest. So the spreadsheet that we've given that shows where we're currently sitting, that's been plugged in there for,
But we're not adding additional money for this header beam.
no,
The
well, no,
100
it's all fits within the budget,
Within the
yes.
130, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, because when the board approved BCM back in January to design this, it was the second meeting in January they were designed, this was the route they were gonna go. And so, the other concern I have, and not that we can't change anything, I'm just, if the board decides they want more information, they want different ways, we can definitely look at that. The downside is, right now, Coach Camrad has asked them to start construction in May because he can start taking his classes outside in May. And so that way they're done by the end of June. So that way, by the time we hit, kind of our really heavy season before the season starts, then we have it for the month of July. If I go back and ask them to redesign, knowing the pace at which our architects, not just our architects in general design, we're probably looking at not even having this go back out to bid, and it's like a 3-week bidding process, so we're probably looking at a month of design, 3 weeks of a bid process, which takes us probably the end of May before we award anything, and then, so it probably just sets us back. I don't know that it would be done by the time August rolled around for school, so.
Yeah, and the reason that I asked for May is we're in the last 3 weeks of the school year. We're winding down our program. We're getting into finals, that if they can get started and put up a temporary wall the first 2 weeks, by the third week, we're essentially done with all of our workouts. And before we get into the 300-plus student athletes that will come into the summer, their plan is to get that temporary wall out of there, and that opens that space back up while they're finishing up and touching up things, and which just made more sense, as opposed to, we would lose some of our space for those kids in the summer, and we'd have to maybe go back to the middle school for a while.
Well, and I will say, one of the reasons it's so costly is because there's a lot of electrical and HVAC that runs back and forth between, through the wall. And so whether you're going with one big beam, or whether you're going with a series of smaller beams and columns, you're gonna have to do the same electrical work, the same HVAC work, so all of that's gonna stay the same. If you're gonna eliminate the wall, and either whether you're going with one big beam or smaller beams, you probably, to Director Sturm's point, you're probably gonna save a little bit of money. We just go back and do a redesign. How much money you save, I don't know, 20,000 maybe, If it's 20,000, it's 20,000. Is 20,000 worth not having it done by the time school starts, and/or, putting additional visibility issues in the room? It just, I'll do whatever the board wants to do.
Do we need to update any lighting in that other room?
It's all included as far as the high school LED lighting.
Okay,
Yep.
so we don't need to add any additional?
Nope, it's all getting new HVAC that's already been approved, I think, as part of the high school HVAC package, and it's getting all new lighting as part of the high school LED lighting project.
I just asked because I've never had a bright wrestling room before, so.
No, it's pretty dark, so.
Okay.
It'll all be pretty seamless. It all look like it's one big room. So we'll paint it the same,
Okay.
Do you guys have any other questions? Otherwise, I know that he's got a Doing a little 7-on-7 tonight, right? You still doing it?
Oh, geez.
Okay.
Good luck.
That's it?
Yeah.
Hey, don't say that word here. We don't like the S words, so.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you guys have any other?
No, I really don't have any concerns. I mean, I can't
your
speak to
points-
structural. Your points are valid.
Yes.
Yes.
But I guess when I look at it is if we're not willing to cut corners for the athletic building and we want to make it good, I view this as kind of a similar, let's do it
Yeah.
to meet the coach's needs and wants and desires. But I can't speak to a structural,
Yeah.
We're
I mean,
rolling the dice.
20 years from
either
now, we
way.
might be
No.
having a saggy roof, so I
No,
don't wanna
I'm all right with
Yeah, I
say
that.
confidently we don't have to worry
Points are
about
good,
that.
but we're also under budget, like what we budgeted.
Yeah,
We're still under
exactly.
what
Yeah, if we
we're
were
not fighting.
exceeding
I
it.
can just see them running into a pillar though, and it's just, they're running back and forth.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we at next? Okay. 7.09, open enrollment request, closed session. So closed session is recommended to discuss this late filed open enrollment application. Per Iowa Code 21.51A, closed session is appropriate to review or discuss records which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential, or to be kept confidential as a condition for that governmental body's possession or continued receipt of federal funds. Do we have a motion to move to closed session?
Motion to move to closed session?
Second.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Sturm?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins? Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes. Let me know when you're good. You're good? Okay. Alec and Brent. All right. We are back from closed session. So we will move to comments and suggestions. This is the second portion of our meeting where we open the floor to any public comment that they would like to share with the board. We'll give it a couple minutes here for anybody online. Hearing no comments, we will move on to action items. 9.01, strength and conditioning contract with Service Sports Performance.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the strength and conditioning contract with Survey Sports Performance for $40,000.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Sturm?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes. 9.02, 28E, joint sharing agreement, Special Education Administrative Associates.
Mr. President, I'd like to make the motion to approve the 28EE joint sharing agreement with Harlan, ICAM Manning, AHSTW, Nottaway Valley, Boyer Valley, Tri-Center, Glenwood, and Riverside to employ special education administrative associates as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Sturm?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes. 9.03, Iowa Western Community College Memorandum of Understanding Concurrent Enrollment.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the MOU with Iowa Western as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Sturm?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes. 9.04, Chromebook bids has been tabled, so we will move on to 9.05, resolution directing the advertisement for sale, approving electronic bidding procedures, and approving official statement.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would like to introduce the following resolution and move for its adoption. Resolution directing the advertisement for sale of not to exceed $9.5 million general obligation school bonds, Series 2026, approving electronic bidding procedures and approving official statement.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Sandow?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Sturm?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes. I declare the resolution adopted. 9.06, E-rate wireless access point bid.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the E-rate wireless access point bid from RTI for $209,974.29.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Sturm?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes. 9.07, high school boiler replacement bid.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the high school boiler replacement bid from Control Temp for $31,671.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Sturm?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow?
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes. 9.08, high school weight room wall removal bid.
Thank you. You pulled that.
Yeah, that's right. It's right here. It's, Sevener Construction for $130,200.
Mr. President, I'd like
Yes.
to make the motion to approve the high school weight room wall removal bid from Sevener Construction for, can you scroll down, Hazy?
Yep, $130,200.
$130,200.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll say that I did change up, going off of, like the security concerns. Aaron kind of being in the same line of work of what they do down there as far as, running and stuff like that. And with a comment that was said, I think, over here, about, just do it right, do it once. And, so yeah, so I'll say that, I guess that real life deal, so that's how I changed.
Any other discussion? All right, vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow,
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mr. Sturm,
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes. 9.09, open enrollment request for student A.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion to deny the open enrollment request for student A as presented in closed session.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow,
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mr. Sturm,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes. Open enrollment request for student B.
Mr. President, I'd like to make the motion to approve the open enrollment request for student B as presented in closed session.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Sandow,
Yes.
Mr. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mr. Sturm,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes. 9.10, employee request for leave.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the employee request for leave as presented in closed session.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mr. Sturm,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sandow,
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes. Items of interest, future board meetings. I see we changed the one to Tuesday on May 19th.
Yes, let me go up to the top. So we did change that because that's the night of the awards.
Senior awards.
Oop, I just moved it. Oops. Hold on. I can't wait till Dr. Hartman's back and can run this again, so. So we had, Monday, April 20th is our next regular board meeting. And then we have a regular board meeting on May 4th. And then, it's still a regular board meeting, but we're moving off that Monday to that Tuesday. I did ask everybody, and including, Director Bach, everybody was available that Tuesday evening. So if that still works for everybody, we'll do that. That way, I can go to the awards ceremony, which I think the superintendent should probably be at the awards ceremony. Board president should probably be there too for his
Yeah,
daughter.
being
so.
the parent of a senior, I appreciate it, so thank you. Okay, having no other items on the agenda, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, we'll see you next